Hello, manga and anime lovers. I'm Branch, and today I'm talking about Mysterious Disappearances, Episode 9. This episode was another banger. In fact, this was one of the better episodes of the season. Again, maybe not plot-wise, but certainly presentation-wise, this is one of the top episodes for me. I really liked how the show slowed down and we focused on Oto's friend. I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but I like that we focused on her for a while. Aside from the main cast, a lot of the characters are very two-dimensional, and I would say even one-dimensional. Like they really only have one character trait, if any. Like the green-haired, brown-skinned girl, her whole shtick is being dumb. The girl with the purple hair on the side ponytail, well, I already talked about her shtick. And then the blonde girl, I don't even know, she doesn't do anything. But now we have a lot of, and I'm not talking about Oto's friend, by the way, I'm talking about the tall blonde girl. But now, Oto's friend is much more fleshed out. In fact, she was one of the more fleshed out characters. I mean, makes sense. She's basically the main character for this arc. And I gotta say, this arc is starting out a lot better than any of the other arcs this season. Even the prior one, the little girl in red. Unlike the other mysteries, this one starts out, I don't know how to put it. I don't want to say slow and gradual because the other ones have too, but this one, I don't know. I mean, it kind of started out last episode, so we kind of knew what we were getting ourselves into. We got like the hook at the end of last episode about the digital tsukumogami, and this episode we dive right into Oto's friend and her daily life, and it's very sad the way she's being treated. We don't know how her father treats her, but everyone else treats her a little too old for how she actually is. So her tutor, I would say, by the way, I don't like her tutor, not just because she's very mean, but also because the way she speaks is way too sultry for someone teaching a middle schooler. Pushing that aside, everyone talks to her about her father and the great expectations they have of her, and that kind of stuff really destroys a child. How if you don't let them breathe, then they'll basically suffocate, and this is what we see through this episode. We see Nodoka, that's her name. We see Nodoka slowly suffocating from under the expectations of everyone around her. I don't even know if her father expects her to take over the hospital like everyone else does, but everyone is saying it, and her father doesn't seem to have any time for her, and so she's basically left to her own devices, and she latches on to, very parasocially, she latches on to this VTuber. I think Himewood, I don't think I can even pronounce the name, but she latches onto the mermaid VTuber, and I have to say this really struck a chord within me because I have not been in her exact position before, but especially with VTubers, I was really into them when they first started blowing up, like, you know, all the Hololive, Niji-Sanji stuff. I mean, I was there for Kizuno Ai too, but that's a little bit different, and I didn't watch her that much. I thought it was cool, but I got really into VTubers when they had agencies where they could interact with each other, and you could have all this cool content being made. I still remember some of the original Hololive Minecraft server and the Hololive Resistance. Those were fun times. But I understand exactly, basically, what Nodoka is feeling. And it's really unfortunate that the only person, aside from friends her own age, that she can latch onto and get guidance from is someone who is basically a lie. Like they're playing a character. And so they can't actually help her. Like when Oto asks for advice about her dream to become an idol, the VTuber gives a generic response like, oh, you can do it, I'll be cheering for you. And that doesn't mean anything. I mean, it's a nice thing to say, but she hasn't actually said anything. And yet, because Nodoka respects her so much, he latches onto these words. And so the next day, when the VTuber announces her retirement, it basically breaks her spirit. And again, I know this feeling all too well. I've seen a lot of my favorite VTubers being retired, and even the ones that were my favorite, when they're part of a group that I like and they're retired and they're gone, it really is like a death in some way. Not as serious as a real death, but it really is. If you follow them and you really like them and you cheer for them, you feel a part of you like it dies inside, at least for a little while, and then you get over it later on. But when you're someone like Oto and this person was your entire reason for trying your best every day, when that part of you dies, it's not a little part, it's a huge part. And so you can see the repercussions of this. So of course, when the VTuber gains sentience as a tsukumogami, it latches onto Nodoka, and Nodoka latches onto this digital incarnation of this VTuber persona. and she starts to take this tsukumogami's words to heart like she did with the Vtuber. But the tsukumogami is not as harmless as the Vtuber was, and you can argue that her relationship with the Vtuber was not harmless either. But the tsukumogami is really toxic, and she's making Nodoka go to these lengths to chase her dreams and appease the people around her. And so she's neglecting her health as a result. It's really disturbing. Like, this has been some of the most disturbing stuff that has happened in this show so far, when Nodoka goes with Oto to her apartment to study, and then the way she looks and the way she collapses because of lack of sleep, she's basically in a coma, and it's happening to people everywhere. This just struck me on a much more emotionally deep level than all the other mysteries have so far. I mean, the last one was really good, but this one might be my new favorite. Like, this show might just be getting better and better, even though some of the earlier parts were rather mediocre. I also really liked the teacher in this episode, the Ushioni teacher. I know she's not an Ushioni, but the teacher from the first arc. Well, not the first arc, but the second arc. As a general rule, I don't like her, but this episode, she was really nice. I especially liked that she was too old to understand the concept of VTubers, even though she was young herself. When Nodoka was trying to explain it to her, she was basically smiling and nodding like, I understand that. I found that stuff really funny. And I really liked how the teacher was actually doing her job for once and saying the right things to Nodoka. Like, it's good that she's saying, I'm glad I know more about you. And she was talking about the expectations. So if everyone was this teacher, ironically, in Nodoka's life, then Nodoka wouldn't have this problem with the tsukumogami. But unfortunately, everyone is not this teacher. Speaking more about the VTuber as its representation in the show, I thought they did it pretty well. I kind of wish they had used more, ironically, worse animation for the VTuber avatar, so that way it looked kind of like an actual VTuber avatar, but you know, it is what it is. The way chat interacted with the VTuber and the jokes that were made was literally straight out of like every VTuber clip ever, and I have to commend the writers, or writer. Now, obviously, he was missing a bunch of giggles in between the lines and hand clapping and all that stuff. You know, if you watch a VTuber, you know what I'm talking about. It was a bit of a polished version of a VTuber, but still, really good representation of what a VTuber is. I really like that. As for how we're going to face this tsukumogami, I'm not sure. That was left ambiguous. We just basically end it with Sumireko and Dodashino getting ready to do something. I'm really looking forward into how this goes. But one thing I noticed at the end, real quick by the way, is that Dodashino's eyes are becoming purple, just like the stuff that oozes out when he uses his powers. I don't know if that's some sort of like health bar representation, for lack of a better word, but it's rather worrying. The last thing I have to say about this episode is that the animation was really good. Not throughout the whole thing, but for the beginning and the end. And if you've watched it, you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the dance sequences. Like, oh my goodness, Nodoka's dancing at the karaoke bar, and then the cat girls dancing at the weird cat rave party was so good. Like, it wasn't like a One Piece Film Red thing or anything, but it was really good for the standards of this show, and I'm really impressed with what they did. I thought it wasn't going to go on as long as it did. I have to commend the showrunners for putting these musical scenes in, because there's nothing I like more than a nice, musical and the song in the middle of my show with good dancing and choreography. Speaking of choreography, I don't know what the heck is going on with this cat lady at the end. I was speechless for like the first time watching this show. I don't understand why there was a cat rave going on in the park. It doesn't make any sense, but I just don't understand. That being said, really, really looking forward to watching the next episode, so I'll have to leave you for now. Hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye.